Less than 24 hours, Georgians will be under a shelter-in-place order.
McDonald, though, said he did not know the man was handcuffed and was trying to use his foot to pin him to the ground so he could be handcuffed.
If your friends, neighbors, or local organizations are not complying, report them to us.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Free Georgia Podcast, the official podcast of the Georgia State Libertarian Party. My name is Kat Hartley, and as you can see, I am flying solo on this episode. Jake could not make it today because he's finishing up the second season of his amazing docuseries called The Cascade Effect, where he's been investigating corruption in the Cascade County Police Department, up in Montana where he's living now. So if you guys are true crime fans, go check out that first season. And if you guys like it, keep an eye out for the second season, which is coming out in about a month. So on this episode today, I will be interviewing Jon Padfield. We've had him on the show before. He has his own channel called The Business Reform. I always love talking to him because he just has so much information on how the government and other companies are invading our privacy. And on today's episode, we talk about Florida's HB 945 bill that thankfully did not get passed. We talk about that. We talk about other invasive technologies, and we also talk about his Brushfires of Freedom Tour, which he's bringing down here to the South. So if you guys want more information about all of those amazing things, stay tuned to our episode. Hi, Jon. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Kat. It is wonderful to be back with you again.
I think the last time you were on here was in October. Am I right?
I think that's right. October, November, sometime late last year.
What have you been doing since then?
It's been a busy couple of months since I was here last. I have announced to my division head at the university that I will not be coming back after my contract is up. I'm not tenured, but I am a business professor, and my YouTube channel has grown, and I'm planning on going full-time as a content creator. So I've notified the university that I'll be leaving when my contract's up, and I've been planning tour events. I have what I call the Brushfires of Freedom Tour. It's based on an old quote. It doesn't take a majority to prevail, just an irate, tireless minority keen on setting brushfires of freedom in the minds of men. And that quote really inspired me because I love this idea of brushfires of freedom. And so I've started traveling the country, and I'm going to be down in your area next week. That's spring break for my university. But I'm going to be down in Auburn, Alabama on the evening of Monday, March 16th. Fayetteville, Georgia on the evening of Tuesday the 17th, going up to Chattanooga, Tennessee on the evening of Wednesday the 18th, and wrapping up this tour leg in Knoxville on Thursday the 18th. And looking forward to getting out and meeting more people. These are free events, and we're going to be talking about surveillance and privacy and mankind's desire for freedom. Freedom is incompatible with 24/7 surveillance. You're really not free if you're constantly under observation. You're more like a zoo animal. And so we have good discussions. I've been doing these all around the country. I've been to Florida. I've been to Utah, Illinois, Wisconsin, and looking forward to coming back to Georgia. This will be my second time to Georgia and my first time to Alabama.
On Tuesday, the 17th, you'll be with Elizabeth doing,
yes.
She'll have Banished Big Brother there as well.
Yes, and she will also be in Auburn, Alabama on the 16th. So she will be there twice. And Banished Big Brother is helping to sponsor this tour. These are free events. There's no cost to the public to come out and attend. But Banished Big Brother is helping to cover the cost of my travel and things like that. If you don't mind, I'd like to go ahead and give the address for anyone that's interested.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
On Monday, March 16th, the event starts at 7 p.m. and it's at Baumhower's. The address is 2353 Bent Creek Road in Auburn, Alabama. And then the next day, Tuesday, March 17th, again starting at 7 p.m. I will be speaking at the Townsquare Playhouse at 455 Glen Street South, Suite 107, and that's in Fayetteville, Georgia.
And
if anyone
sorry.
wants more details, the web address is brushfirestour.net. Excuse me, brushfirestour.com.
Okay, I will make sure to put that in the description as well as the locations of
Okay,
the event.
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So tell us a little bit more about what y'all will be talking about and like exactly what you're looking forward to.
I have spent the last couple of months really digging into what I call the surveillance infrastructure, because surveillance is not new, but it is getting more and more advanced every day. Part of that is due to AI. Part of it is due to the cost of cameras and microphones getting cheaper by the day. And there was so much surveillance already going on through things like fog data science, which buys data from all the apps on your smartphone, and they piece together everywhere you've been. And then they sell a subscription to law enforcement. So if you ever showed up on the radar of law enforcement and they wanted to know where you've been for the last 6 months, they log into their subscription to fog data science, and they can put in your phone number and they can see minute by minute where has your phone been for the last 6 months or 2 years or however long they want to track you. I find this incredibly invasive, but it's worse than that. I was having a conversation with a reporter from a major news outlet. He has not released his story yet. It should be any time now. But I asked him, were you aware of fog data science? And he was not. And I said, do you ever have whistleblowers come to you to give you tips about shady things going on? And he kind of chuckled and he said, yeah, that happens from time to time. And I said, just imagine this scenario. You write a story for your media outlet and you step on the wrong toes. And now somebody is offended that you revealed information they didn't want made public. They want to know who the whistleblower is. So all they have to do is take your phone number and look to see everywhere you've been for the last, say, 3 weeks, because if it's a hot lead, you're probably not going to sit on it very long. So you publish a story today, somebody in law enforcement looks up your phone number and they look to see where have you been for the last 3 weeks. And they notice that 7 days ago, you went to a park and sat at a park bench. They know because they can tell within inches where your phone was. And they noticed that another phone came up and sat down next to you on that park bench for 45 minutes, then left. Was that the tipster? Well, now all they have to do is follow that phone. Where did that phone go after the meeting with you? And they can follow that person back to where they work or where they live to identify who you met with, all without a warrant and all for an annual subscription fee to fog data science. So this level of surveillance has been around for years. It's done without warrants. It's done usually without notifying the courts how this information was obtained. But the whole point is that surveillance is totally invisible to the public. You never see a camera because they don't need a camera. All they need is that app that's on your phone. So that's what I call the invisible infrastructure that's been around for years. Flock, I call them Flock Surveillance. Officially, they're the Flock Group or Flock Safety. They were the first commonly recognized visible piece of the surveillance infrastructure, because as you're driving down the road and you see Flock cameras everywhere, I can't go to work without passing 2 of them. And Flock is taking a lot of heat right now, probably not as much as they deserve, but Flock is taking heat because they are the first visible piece of the surveillance infrastructure. And I have been researching what else is out there because people are recognizing Flock and Flock is getting a lot of backlash, but there are other pieces of this infrastructure that people just aren't aware of. I'll give you 2 examples. Are you familiar with something called a halo sensor? HALO.
I'm only familiar because I watched your dingo video.
Okay. For anyone that's never heard of a halo sensor, there's a very good chance you have seen one and didn't know what it was. Halo sensors look like smoke detectors, and they are typically found in public restrooms. And just pause right there for a second. I have smoke detectors in my house, but what's the likelihood of a fire starting in a restroom? What do you have in a restroom? Tile floors, hard plastic, water, glass. I mean, there's not a lot of flammable things inside of a restroom. If you were an arsonist, the restroom is the worst place in the building that you would want to go to try and start a fire. About the only thing flammable in there is a roll of toilet paper. And even if you lit it, it's going to burn itself out and fall on a tile floor, and that's the end of it. So why do you need smoke detectors in a public restroom? It's not a fire hazard. Well, the reason that they're putting these in there is it's much more than a smoke detector. And I will say it is a smoke detector, but that's only a fraction of what it does. Looks like a regular smoke detector. In addition to detecting smoke, it also detects vape. So if somebody's going into the restroom and vaping, it will detect somebody's vaping. There's also what they call occupancy sensors. And they claim this is not a camera, but this is a sensor built into the smoke detector that can tell how many people are in the room. Okay, they don't elaborate exactly on how that occupancy sensor works, but they claim they can count how many people are in the restroom. In addition to that, there is a microphone built into it, and it listens for keywords. They do not divulge what those keywords are, but they do say that AI performs aggression analysis. And so in theory, this is there to prevent bullying. If one person goes into a restroom, let's say this is a middle school, one person goes into a restroom and another person goes into the restroom after them and shoves them up against the wall and threatens them, give me your lunch money or else. This sensor mounted in the restroom has a microphone. AI is listening to the conversation, listening for keywords. And if it detects certain keywords, which it comes with a standard set of keywords, but the owner of the sensor can have additional keywords added. And if that sensor detects those keywords have been spoken, it triggers an alarm and it alerts authorities. Better get somebody down to the restroom as soon as possible. And here's my big problem with all of this. It's sold under the guise of public safety. Well, let's think about what public safety means. In the intro that you played right before you and I started talking, there was some media clips about compliance. If you're, I'm assuming that those were from the pandemic, but public safety involved, you can't leave your house. The governor has ordered, the mayor has ordered, people can't leave their houses. I've never seen anywhere in the Constitution that any governor or even president has the authority to confine people to their homes. I've read the Constitution many times. I've never seen that provision. But the bottom line is a microphone mounted in a public location like a public restroom, that microphone being analyzed by AI for keywords. What's the limitations on this? Maybe they are listening for violent words or threats. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to beat you up. Maybe they're listening for those keywords. But the fact that you can add additional keywords of your choosing, what other purposes could this sensor be used for? The state of Florida has a bill, and thankfully their legislative session ends today. I'm hoping that this bill does not pass. But
Yeah, I was
Florida,
going to ask you about that. Can you explain it and then also talk about the language and some of the powers that it creates?
absolutely. This is Florida House Bill 945, introduced by a state representative from House District 69 in Florida. Florida is overwhelmingly Republican. When you look at the makeup of their legislature, they're 75, 80% Republican in both the House and Senate. So Republican supermajorities in both chambers. Well, the state representative from House District 69 introduced House Bill 945. And what that bill does, it creates a counterterrorism unit for the state of Florida. And they're going to have offices around the state. And I kind of poke a little bit of fun at them that, somebody needs to do this because nobody at the federal level is trying to track down on terrorism except for Department of Homeland Security. Department of Justice has a counterterrorism section. Department of Treasury has a counterterrorism section. CIA, FBI, Director of National Intelligence. There are literally dozens of federal offices, departments, agencies, bureaus, and task force who are responsible for counterterrorism. But the state of Florida decides they need that. Okay, great use of taxpayer money. But the biggest issue that I have with the bill isn't the creation of the CTU, it's what they're going after. This bill defines a term that I have never seen before called an adversary intelligence entity. That is the exact language in the bill, adversary intelligence entity. And the first time I read those words, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, are you talking the Russian GRU, the KGB? Adversary intelligence entity, that sounds like, somebody else's version of our CIA. Well, they define what an adversary intelligence entity is. It's any government, non-governmental organization, corporation, business, consortium, group, et cetera, or person. So a single individual can be an adversary intelligence entity. And what does it take for a person to be considered an adversary intelligence entity? It says any business, group, government, et cetera, or person whose demonstrated actions or views or opinions are deemed a threat to the interest of the state. That put a chill down my spine. If I live in Florida, thankfully I don't. If I live in Florida and I hold views or opinions that are deemed a threat to the interest of the state, I am by definition an adversary intelligence entity. And what does that mean? Well, it means my name goes on a list, and this counterterrorism unit that the bill creates, it says that their task is to analyze pattern of life data to find risk. It authorizes them to arrest people. Now, it doesn't say arrest them for actions they've committed, but if you are deemed a risk from pattern of life data, this bill authorizes you to be arrested. We're going to arrest people for their opinions? I mean, that's the plain reading of the bill. And I've read some media interviews with the author of the bill saying that's not what this is intended for. It doesn't matter. That's what the bill says. You can't pass a law that says it's illegal to hold these opinions and then say, that's not what I intended. That's what it says. What do you think the courts are going to do with that? That's what it says. They're not going to bring you in to testify when somebody gets arrested so that you can clear the person saying that's not what I intended. Words have meaning, and that piece of bill or piece of legislation is a horrible, horrible overreach, literally criminalizing thought. And so in my video, I talk about Florida's thought police, because that is what this bill creates, is Florida's thought police. You hold the wrong views or opinions, you can be arrested. And it's scary because in the bill, it specifically says their counterterrorism unit is supposed to use pattern of life data in order to determine who's a threat. Okay, let's explore that term for just a moment. Pattern of life data means, what do you do day in and day out? What is your baseline? And so if flock cameras notice every day you you pass this camera at this time on your way to work, and every afternoon you pass the camera at this time on your way home from work, that's a pattern. And Monday through Friday, I expect to see you pass this camera at a certain time, plus or minus 15 minutes. But last Thursday, a flock camera detected your car driving 2 counties away at 10 p.m. That's a change in your pattern of life. What were you doing over there, Kat? Explain yourself, because that's an anomaly from your baseline. I'm sorry, but that's nobody's business. If I want to go for a drive at 1 o'clock in the morning, that's my business, not theirs. But pattern of life data means we're going to analyze your routines. And if you are meeting with the wrong people, we know this person holds some opinions that we don't like, and you're meeting with them, especially if you're meeting with them in an out of the way place like a park, and then you get to be on that list too, because your pattern of life data says you may be a threat. This is horrible, beyond Orwellian language. And that bill, when it was introduced on December 30th, 2025, it was assigned to a couple of different House committees in Florida. It passed every one of them overwhelmingly. The first committee that it went to, it passed unanimously. The second committee it went to, it passed, I believe it was 17-1. And then the third committee that it went to, it still passed with a majority, but there's a little more opposition to it. It went to a fourth committee, and I have not looked at the bill in the last 2 days, but as of 2 days ago, it was still stuck in committee. And time is getting short because Florida legislature, their session ends today. So if it doesn't become law by the end of the day today, then it's dead until next year. And it looks like there's a good chance that it's going to die today. But this is what I'm talking about in my Brushfires of Freedom Tour. Some people say, well, these flock cameras, they're just there for public safety. If you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have to worry about it. Number one, this bill that was introduced in the Florida House that made it through several committees, you don't have to do anything wrong. The new term, and I'm going to start using this everywhere I go, if you're not thinking anything wrong, you have nothing to worry about. Because you don't have to do anything. Holding the wrong views and opinions has been criminalized, or would have been criminalized, under House Bill 945. In addition to that, it's not if you're not doing anything wrong, it's become if you're not thinking anything wrong. And now there's a third category, if you don't look like anyone doing anything wrong. Because there have been cases of totally innocent people being arrested because flawed facial recognition said you are this person and there's a warrant out for this person. And so you get arrested because you look like that person. And even though you have a real ID driver's license with that little gold star in the corner, here's my real ID, which is supposed to be absolute solid proof of who I am, but facial recognition said you're this other person, you're still going to jail. And that is not a theoretical. It's happened out in Reno, Nevada. An innocent man was arrested, taken to jail. He had his real ID. He had pay stubs in the car showing his real name. He had all types of other collateral in his wallet, other forms of identification, his work badge and things like that. But the police would not accept the fact because AI facial recognition said with 100% certainty, this person is this other person. And even though he had all of this identification on him, they would not listen to him. He went to jail. You would think that it would have immediately have been dropped once the prosecutor saw the evidence. So the prosecutor decided, let's go ahead and prosecute anyway. Eventually, the case was dropped. But how terrifying. You don't have to do anything wrong. You now don't even have to think anything wrong. Just pray that you don't look like somebody who's wanted.
That's ridiculous. So specifically with that bill, if it is passed, do you think that that would set a precedent that maybe other Republican majority states would follow suit in passing a bill like this?
There was a similar bill that was introduced. I'm going from memory now. I believe it was New Hampshire, which really seems out of character
That's
for New
crazy.
Hampshire. But that bill died a very quick death. One person introduced it, and I'm a former Indiana state representative. Any representative, any senator can introduce any bill. And all it takes is one person to introduce it. But if everyone else thinks that this is a horrible idea, it can die a very quick death. And the other state, like I said, I believe it was New Hampshire, but the other state where similar language was introduced, it was dead on arrival. Did not get passed by any committees. Basically, everyone said that's a horrible idea. Next, let's move on to something else. But if this gets passed in Florida, yes, this could spread to other states. We see this all the time. Somebody has to go first. The state of California last year, I believe it was last October, Governor Newsom signed a bill into law that requires age verification at the operating system level. So it's not just when you go to certain websites. It's not just when you download certain apps. It's got to be built into the operating system, whether it's Mac OS, whether it's Windows. The bill even includes Linux. And that bill was passed by the state of California last October. Now Colorado is doing it. And so bad ideas have a tendency to spread. And what may still pass in Florida, you're never safe while the legislature's in session. I learned that a long time ago. Your rights are never safe while the legislature's in session. But if that bill doesn't turn into law today, people in Florida are at least safe until next January.
That's crazy. When I watched that video, I was just like, my mind was kind of blown. So the other video that I watched that you just, what were you going to say?
If I could just add one more thing about that video. In that video, I trace, where did this come from? The state representative who introduced this bill was financially supported by a private prison company called the Geo Group. The Geo Group has a long, long history of scandals and human rights abuses, from using toxic chemicals inside of the prison to they just last month, they lost a case before the U.S. Supreme Court related to a forced labor program they had. Think about the money-making potential here. You have 1,000 inmates in your prison. You can put them to work doing work for outside companies, and you only have to pay them $1 a day. And if they don't agree to work, you can throw them in solitary confinement. That sounds a lot to me like slave labor. You have somebody that's in prison against their will. They didn't volunteer to go there. But while they're in prison, you can force them to work or throw them in solitary confinement. What do you think they're going to choose? And then you can collect money from other companies for the work that these people are doing. This is wrong. But they were arguing that it's okay for them because they're federal contractors. And I couldn't make this up if I tried. That was their rationale when they lost in front of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. That was their argument when they lost before the United States Supreme Court. We're federal contractors. We're acting on behalf of the government, so it's okay for us to do this. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said, you're wrong. They appealed it. It went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, you're wrong. You can't do this. But that's the Geo Group. They're a private prison company with a long history of scandals and human rights abuses. They were the ones who helped fund the state representative who introduced this bill. What would this bill do if passed? It would ensure that a lot more people are arrested. And what would happen to those people? Well, in Florida, 13% of all prisoners are held in private prisons. And so to me, this just looks like a mass cesspool of corruption when a company that makes money for housing inmates helps pass a very broad law to get more people arrested. That kind of looks to me like they're just trying to get more people incarcerated so they can make more money from the state, housing people that are deemed a threat to the state because of their views and opinions. In addition to the GEO group, there's only one registered lobbyist in favor, and I drop the receipts. I have links to all of my sources, but there's only one registered lobbyist in Florida who was supporting this bill, Celebrite. Some people are going to recognize that name, some won't. Celebrite is an Israeli-based digital intelligence company. They make data extraction tools for law enforcement, the same tools that have been used by authoritarian regimes for harassing and cracking down on journalists and activists. But Celebrite, who makes these digital forensics tools for breaking into people's phones, they make spyware. That is the company that's lobbying in favor of this bill. So again, in my mind, there is a lot of shady things going on with this bill.
Moving on to some of the surveillance tech. Apparently in my city of Dunwoody, the police have adopted drones as first responders.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like kind of skimming through some articles about it. And it was kind of funny to see that the stories that they've had with the use of these drones haven't been like revolutionary in any way. Like they haven't actually like helped better than, you know, their own body cams or, you know, the police officers themselves. One story was the drone was called after I think there was like a struggle with the police and the person they were trying to arrest. The drone just came and just videotaped it from like an aerial view, and that was pretty much it. So obviously, like they say with all of these new techs that they're gonna be helping law enforcement or helping whichever department, and it doesn't seem like they do much other than surveil or get like, you know, more different views of the things that are already happening and that, you know, are already being handled by the police officers.
100%. When I think of the term first responder, I have a very good friend. He works for the hospital. He not only is a paramedic, he is responsible for training paramedics. Excuse me. He's responsible for doing a lot of public training for the public. I have taken classes with him on stop the bleed and some other emergency first aid because this is what he does for a living, being a paramedic and training other people on what to do in an emergency. So when I think of first responder, number one, I have a very, very high respect for true first responders. They are saving lives. If I were involved in a car accident, you know, pinned in my car, bleeding, you know, hearing the sirens of an ambulance, that's very comforting because you know that a first responder is going to be there to help extract you from the car, administer first aid. Now, how comforting is it? You're in a car wreck, you're pinned in your car, and you hear woo, 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 woo. What's that drone going to do for you? Is it going to apply a tourniquet? Is it going to get you out of the car? No, it's going to videotape you dying. Calling a drone a first responder is an insult to first responders. First responders are there to help. That drone is there to document. And so I refuse to use that language. The drone is not a first responder. If you want to call it a first observer, okay, I'll go along with that. I'll call it a first observer. Somebody calls 911, we can get an observer out there to watch what's going on. Doesn't really do the victim any good, but at least we have a video of what happened. But to call it a first responder, I absolutely think that's an insult to real first responders.
Are there any other texts like that you haven't mentioned in your videos yet?
Oh, that I haven't mentioned in videos. Let me share one other one that I mentioned in my surveillance bingo, because I think your audience would be interested in this. Flock cameras record your license plate. They record your bumper stickers, make, model, color of your car, distinguishing characteristics like scratches, dents, bike racks, roof racks. They take what they call, this is their language, it's a vehicle fingerprint. And that way, if later they see your car, but at an angle that they can't see the license plate, they can still recognize that's your car because of the bumper stickers. That alone is terrifying. Imagine somebody being elected to office who says, give me a list of everyone who's pro-life or pro-choice or pro-Palestinian or pro-Israel. I don't care what side of an issue people are on. I don't want the government maintaining list of people that have certain types of bumper stickers. So anyway, that's Flock. Well, Flock, while they are the 800-pound gorilla of license plate readers, they have dominant market share. They do have competitors. And one of their competitors is a company called Leonardo. You rarely ever see a Leonardo license plate reader. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, physically, they are much smaller than a Flock camera. But number two, Leonardo cameras are built to be hidden. And so where do you typically find a Leonardo license plate reader? Inside of traffic barrels along the interstate. So when the interstate narrows down to one lane and you see these barrels every so often, there will be a Leonardo license plate reader inside of one of the barrels. Sometimes they will put them in a truck toolbox for an unmarked police car, but there's a license plate reader built into the toolbox. Again, unless you are really looking for it, you're not going to see it. They'll put them on a car that has a cargo carrier on top of the car. There'll be a little window cut out in the cargo carrier with a camera in it. So that's Leonardo. They make license plate readers. But wait, there's more. In addition to the license plate readers, they have a product called Signal Trace. Signal Trace is an antenna array. And what it does, as a car passes the license plate reader, if it is equipped with Signal Trace, it is scanning everything inside of your car. So I've got a smartwatch. This smartwatch has Bluetooth built into it. As I drive by Signal Trace is, the license plate reader is capturing the license plate of my car. Signal Trace is picking up the unique ID of my smartwatch, and it's tying them together. This watch belongs to this license plate. My AirPods are Bluetooth. They have a unique identifier with them. So my Bluetooth AirPod headphones, they are associated with my license plate. My laptop, if I had a pacemaker, if I had a continuous glucose meter, if I had a dog that had a chip in it, anything that you have that emits a electronic signal gets picked up by Signal Trace and associated with your license plate. So if there were a Signal Trace that I drive by every day on my way to work, Signal Trace is sitting there cataloging every electronic device in my car. And you might think, well, what are they doing that for? What from a surveillance standpoint, what's better than knowing where your car is, knowing who's inside of it? So if the day comes that my car isn't working and I ask you, hey, Kat, can you give me a ride to work tomorrow? And you say, sure. I get in your car wearing my watch, carrying my headphones. We drive by one of these sensors, and the sensor says, Jon Padfield must be in Kat's car because that license plate belongs to Kat, but that watch and those headphones belong to Jon Padfield. We now have known associates. So in the future, if you or I ever wind up on that list of adversary intelligence entities, and the government says, we're looking for Jon Padfield, but he's not at home right now. Where else should we look? Well, his list of known associates includes Kat because she gave him a ride to work. this sounds like science fiction, but this is what's being done right now. This is how you find people. Ring doorbell cameras. If I had a Ring doorbell camera, which I did many years ago before they were purchased by Amazon, I threw it away a long time ago. But if I have a Ring doorbell camera and you ever come to my house, now Ring has known associates, because Ring knows that doorbell is mounted at my house and it knows where I live, and it saw you coming into my house. And if you stayed for an hour, it's going to say, well, obviously these two people know each other. You normally don't let strangers into your house for an hour. And so again, this is feeding the surveillance infrastructure. We can start mapping known associates. John has to know Kat because Kat gave him a ride to work one day and she's been at his house before. So here's our known associates. If we're ever looking for one person and we can't find them, here's the other people that we're going to start looking at to see where that person might be.
It is so hard because I feel like the arguments that people can make for, the safety of the technology and how, if someone was kidnapped or someone stole something, anything like that, that these technologies would help a lot. And I know you probably get asked this question a lot, and I feel like I probably asked you this before, but like that trade-off, a lot of people would say it to save, that girl that got kidnapped, it would be worth, all my information and being tracked all the time.
The answer that I have to that, and I do not mean to sound calloused, but what would be the quickest way of getting all criminals off the street? Let's do away with judges and juries. If you're accused of a crime, just sentence you to prison, because there's a chance you're guilty. And if we just do away, I mean, juries get it wrong sometimes. Sometimes they fail to convict guilty people. So let's pull the human element out and let's go to something like that Chris Pratt movie that came out in January called Mercy, where AI becomes the judge. Because we have this video that says this person did such and such, we can let AI replace our judges and juries. I'm not for that. But the point is, our system was designed to favor the accused. Why do 12 people have to agree someone's guilty before they're convicted? All it takes is one of 12 people to say, I'm not convinced, and the defendant goes free. That is done to protect the rights of the innocent. And some of our founding fathers made the comment, I would rather 100 guilty people go free than one person be wrongfully convicted. And so we're given 12 chances. All you have to do is demonstrate reasonable doubt to one of 12 jurors for a person to be acquitted. So the idea of, well, all of this surveillance is there to protect us. In some cases, that's true. But let's look at how many times this surveillance infrastructure is abused. In Florida, 2 police officers have been arrested. And this is another one of those things. If 2 have been arrested, there's probably 100 that have broken the law that didn't get caught. Because what do we know about police? When they break the law, oftentimes they get away with it. And I'm not saying all cops are bad, not saying that at all. But realistically, if 2 cops have actually been arrested, do you think they're the only 2 that are breaking the law? The 2 that have been arrested in Florida, the 5 or 6 that have been arrested in Georgia, the officers, it's a national problem. Wisconsin, Kansas, many states, there have been officers arrested for misusing this technology. And so when officers are using this technology to stalk ex-spouses or stalk ex-girlfriends, there's crimes being committed there too. And one other argument I would make, Flock, and that's just one company out of many, many companies involved in the surveillance infrastructure. Flock is worth $7.5 billion at the last estimate. And that's because they have over 100,000 cameras up. Those 100,000 cameras, people are paying $3,500, $4,000 per year a piece for those. So you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars being spent on surveillance. What if, rather than putting all the surveillance in place, what if we spent that same hundreds of millions of dollars putting more officers on the street? Would that also bring crime down without creating constitutional issues about tracking where everyone goes and what everyone does? So I'm not against public safety. No rational person is against public safety. But it's a question of, there is this much money to go around. We could use that money for hiring more officers that could actually be first responders, that could actually help someone when they're dispatched. Or we could put that money into surveillance so that we can track where everyone goes all the time, so we can watch people bleed out because our first responder doesn't have anything but a camera. We can watch people bleed out, but that drone is not going to put a tourniquet on anyone. It's not going to pull anyone out of a burning car. So these are just some of the thoughts that come to my mind. Yes, some of this technology under some circumstances can help reduce crime. The statement that's been made by the CEO of Flock is just blatantly false. His statement, and I quote, "We know cameras prevent crime." Great. Police no longer need body armor. Police no longer need firearms because they have a body cam. No one's going to attack a cop wearing a body cam because cameras prevent crime. That's ludicrous. Cameras do not prevent crime. If cameras prevented crime, you would not turn on the evening news and see a crime take place. Jurors would never see video evidence of a crime taking place because the presence of the camera would have prevented the crime. Obviously, that is a false statement. Cameras do not prevent crime. Sometimes video evidence from a camera can help catch who did it, but that's different than saying it prevented the crime. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this. Is there an upside? Yeah, there is an upside, but in my opinion, it does not exceed the downside.
Well, that was all the questions that I had for you. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make the Fayetteville event because I'll be working. It's St. Patrick's Day, and I do alcohol promotion, so I'll be working that night.
Okay.
And I'm very upset about that. Are y'all going to be like recording anything so that anybody could see it online if they're not able to make it?
I'm going to try, because I normally do a YouTube live stream the first and third Monday of every month. And the third Monday of March is going to be the night that I'm in Auburn. So I am going to try to do a live stream from the Auburn event, which would be broadcast on YouTube and recorded. I can't guarantee that's going to work because I've never tried it before. My other events, I normally record those and I make those available on my Patreon. I would love to meet you in person sometime. This is our second podcast that we've had a chance to talk to each other. I will probably be coming back to Georgia again. I know I'll be there for Dragon Con this fall. That's always over Labor Day weekend. So hopefully you and I will be able to connect in person sometime. But I hope things go well with your job on the 17th. And thank you for reminding me that is St. Patrick's Day, because I don't wear a whole lot of green, but I'll make sure I do that for the Fayetteville event.
Also, what was I going to say? Oh, we have the Libertarian National Convention. I don't know if you're a libertarian at all, but we have that in May. And I think it's like the Memorial Day weekend. Mm-hmm. So I'll be going to that. So if you wanted, it's in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So it's not too far from Indiana, I don't think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't call myself a libertarian, but you might notice the statue over my shoulder is a Statue of Liberty. When I served in office, I served as a Republican, but I had previously run as a Libertarian for that seat. To the best of my knowledge, I still hold the record in Indiana, having won 17% of the vote running for state office as a Libertarian. That was back in 1992. 94, I ran for the same seat as a Republican and actually won. So I do have very strong Libertarian leanings, but I really don't call myself a Libertarian. But from our conversations, you can probably tell where my heart is. I have very strong Libertarian leanings. But anyway, I didn't realize that the national convention is going to be in Grand Rapids this year, so I may try to make that.
Very awesome. Well, yeah, I hope you do, so we can actually meet in person.
Yep.
All right. Well, I enjoyed having you on again. I hope to have you again on soon.
It's been a pleasure for me, and I look forward to the next time that we talk, whether it's another Free Georgia podcast or possibly up in Grand Rapids. This you said May is when that event's going to be?
Yeah, it's Memorial Day weekend, I think, from Thursday to all the way to Monday.
Okay, great. Well, hopefully I'll meet you in person there, and I look forward to whenever next time our paths cross on the Free Georgia podcast.